Hey everyone, welcome back to the Intelligent Conversations podcast. Today we have a familiar face, Roger Williams. Everyone, you remember him from last year. He was a fantastic guest. He had great things to share about making a bucket list and how you can set your life up so then you do things that you want and achieve a life that you want. So Roger, welcome back to the show, man.
Josh, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's always great talking to you. I enjoy our relationship that we built over the past since I went on the show last, and I'm excited to be back.
Yeah, so I guess first question I want to ask right off the bat, what have you been up to this past since last time we had you on? What have you been up to? What's kind of been keeping you busy?
Yeah, well, so the last time we were on, I was on here that we had been talking about my trip to Europe. I was in Europe, gallivanting around, seeing friends, doing some bucket list stuff. And since then, I came back to the States, and I had a goal of writing some books while I was away on my bucket list journey. And I did start those. But when I came home after having this experience of, being gone for 3 months and crossing things on my bucket list and continuing to do my podcast, which is about people that cross things off their bucket list, I just felt like this need that I had all this knowledge that I needed to get out about what it was like to live a bucket list lifestyle and how you could take that on. So I stopped those other books and for a month just wrote a brand new one and self-published it in September.
There you go. That's awesome. I'm excited for you. Let me know when that book comes out.
It's out. It's out now.
Oh, it's already out?
Yeah,
there you go. What's it called?
It's called Live Out Your List, Finding Joy Through a Bucket List Lifestyle.
Gotcha.
So yeah, it's available on Amazon in Kindle and paperback and on my website, and we can give that stuff out later. But yeah, we live in such a magical world where if you find you want to do something, that there are resources out there through the interwebs that you can find whatever it is you need to make whatever you want happen for the most part. And so, just like the podcasting that we do, where most likely neither of us went to podcasting school. I don't know if there is one. Maybe you and I should talk about starting one.
But, yeah, that's not a bad idea.
And I've never published a book before, so I just went out on the internet, wrote it, had a friend edit it, and uploaded it, learned how to upload it into Amazon, and they do all the printing and all that kind of stuff. So it's on print on demand. So yeah, it's been a journey of learning for sure over the past 6 to 8 months.
What would you say was the biggest challenge you encountered, like kind of figuring your way writing that book?
For me, because the book is so geared towards giving people a system to live out their list, that I didn't have a lot of problem with that, being a former teacher, saying, here's how you do something, right? So writing nonfiction wasn't that hard for me. But the publishing side was difficult. Like I did my own cover and back cover. I designed them myself, and I don't have all the fancy tools. Like I do everything DIY as cheap as possible. So like getting the correct dimensions on the cover for the spine, and it's like that stuff takes hours. Just learning how to use Amazon's system was new, and making sure that it was all formatted properly for them to accept it and all that kind of stuff. So it was just more like the mechanical side, logistical side of things, getting out there, and then just figuring out how do I promote this book. It's just like, what do I do next?
Dang. Well, I'm happy to have you on. I'm going to be sure. I didn't even know the book was out yet. So I'll be sure to, so I actually deleted social media recently. I still upload my stuff, right? For the podcast.
Yeah.
But I just found that I would be scrolling through all this stuff and I'd be like, whoa, what happened to that hour and a half or something like that? Man, I didn't know it came out. So I'll be sure to.
No, that's totally cool. And I get that. I think that's one of the things that I've done with my social media is that, definitely on the side for promoting the podcast, like I'm not The Rock, but I've gotten to the percentages that The Rock has followers and follows. Like that was kind of my goal. So I went through my Instagram and said, okay, if I have 3,000 followers, what's the percentage? And so I deleted like 1,500 people. But now when I'm on there and I use it, it's actually usable. I see your stuff. I see other people's stuff. And for a long time, my Facebook account has been very, very private. So at one point I had like only 30 people that I interacted with on Facebook, and now I think I'm up to like 130 now, but I keep that really small. And that's hard because you meet people and you engage with folks through this work, and people are like, oh, here's your Facebook request. And it's like, no, I will not confirm that, It's like your work, my Facebook is my Facebook. And that's sometimes that's hard for people to understand.
Yeah, I agree. I think sometimes it's almost like separating that personal and, public life type of thing, right? It's, hey, there's some things I just kind of want to keep to myself and, just share with family and friends. And then there's other things that, come on, man, like I just want to get it out there and the whole world to see type of thing.
Yeah, for sure.
So we kind of talked about, like, before we started this, I wanted to know, you said you have like this idea of New Year's resolutions and creating a bucket list instead of having New Year's resolutions. I want to know more about that. What do you kind of got there?
Yeah, well, so, it's that time of year where we're looking at New Year's resolutions, and every year everybody talks about that. But I think that a bucket list can be a much more fulfilling thing to have than a New Year's resolution, partly just because, only like 9 to 12% of people actually keep their New Year's resolutions, which is not real good. Why we keep talking about it year after year with that success rate is like beyond me. I don't understand. Like, it's not going to change. Only 26% of people are actually, doing their New Year's resolutions after February, right? So 75% of people have already dropped out.
It only gets lower too, right? As the year progresses.
Right. So at some level, it's like, why do we keep talking about this every year? It doesn't seem like it's really working. But it's something people do, on a whim. But as a bucket list, though, on the other side, 95% of Americans would say that they have a bucket list. So surveys have shown. The issue with bucket list, though, I'm just going to be transparent, is that out of those 95, only 40% of them have actually written it down and are actively crossing things off of it. But still, 40% success rate.
That's a lot better.
A lot better than 9 or 12. And some of that, I think the failure rate on a New Year's resolution is that people make it on a whim, right? They hear us talking about it, or they hear it on Good Morning America or whatever, and they're like,
yes.
And then they at 11:55 on New Year's Eve, they're like, oh yeah, what was that? Expecting you to make a complete life change on something you spent about 5 minutes thinking about probably isn't going to have a high success rate, and we've seen that that's accurate.
Well, it's even like you get people that make goals or whatever, New Year's resolutions that are not even theirs, right? Has nothing to do with them. It's like, oh, I'm going to go to the gym every week. I'm like, well, are you really like a gym rat? Like, maybe the best thing for you if you want to get in shape, let's say, is, hey, let's go for a walk, or hey, let's go explore this national park, walk around. Like, there's so many other options, right, to get fit, right, and get around and be healthy. So
The thing that I would add on to that is that when you don't accomplish that major thing of going to the gym daily or whatever it is, quit smoking, lose 100 pounds, whatever the thing is, can be a huge sense of shame, right? That you've publicly announced, I'm going to do this, and then you don't do it. And then there's shame in that. And you shouldn't heap shame upon yourself, for sure. And we're in control of that. That's why I like the bucket list, because it's dynamic. It is a living document. And you don't have to share it with everybody either.
Exactly. And it's more personal too.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, it should be. It should be.
Yeah, exactly. And I think when it comes, again, I think the New Year's resolutions, we look at the world instead of ourselves, right? We look outward like, oh, well, this person's doing that. This person's doing that. I want that, and that, and that, and that. Right. Whereas a bucket list, it's more like, all right, what do I want? Right. And you kind of start picking out from yourself. type of thing.
Yeah, if you're into it, like it sounds you are, that's exactly right. So one of the chapters in my book, I specifically talk about setting an intention for your bucket list, right? So what is your intention for doing this thing? And that is something we don't, that's what makes it personal, and something we don't do when we look at a New Year's resolution. What's your intention for a New Year's resolution? I don't know. I just do it every year. I just make one, And when you set an intention and say, this is why I have this bucket list, then you can say, okay, that's what makes creating it. If you use that intention as your framework to say, oh, this is why this is personal. Right. Yeah. And when you start managing it and crossing things off of it, it's like, okay, because I have this intention, I can see where I need to put my focus on crossing these items off. It's one of the things I've learned over since the last time you and I have talked is just setting that intention is so massive and so huge that it's the key to unlocking the full potential of a bucket list being, like you say, about you.
I agree. I think that especially I like that you said set that intention, right? Because again, when it comes to those New Year's resolutions, right, you're so concerned about how you appear to other people, right? But when it comes to a bucket list or something and you set that intention, it's more like, all right, why do I want this? And it almost creates a purpose for like why you want what you want type of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think I've heard enough people talk about this where they say, if you don't really have a purpose, you kind of wander and kind of fizzles out. And what happens with New Year's resolutions? Fizzles out, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you gave the percentages there that the success rate. And I think, right, with the bucket list, it's more personal. It's you. And I would say that people, when they cross it off, it's almost like, well, I did that. Like, it's almost not even real, right? When you cross something off.
Yeah. And that could be your intention, right? Your intention could be build confidence. Like the intention for my list is I'm going to build confidence. So I'm going to put things on my list that they're going to challenge me. And when I'm done with them, I can say I can do anything, right? That's what we want confidence to be like. And so that's a great intention to have. For me, my intention was build community, right? Be in community. The community is everything about my bucket list for the most part is about community, either building new community or strengthening old community. And so that drives what's on my list. And that's what makes it personal for me. Not too many people probably have go to the World Championships of Barbecue in Memphis, Tennessee with their best friends from middle school. That's pretty specific to me, I would think, for having something on your bucket list. I'm going to do that this year. I'm going to go to Memphis with my 2 high school buddies and go to the World Championships of Barbecue. And we're going to have a phenomenal time, guys weekend away. And it's going to be awesome, but that's how having that intention of community affects my bucket list.
I agree. I think that again, I mean, what you're saying is awesome. This is kind of something that just kind of came to my mind. So, I mean, community is a big part of your intention for doing things. Because some people, right, they get so busy, right, because they have to make money or what all this other garbage that's out there, right? How do you kind of set time to kind of get your buddies to go to the World Championship Barbecue in Memphis? Am I getting that right?
Oh, yeah.
So how do you kind of set time to do that?
Well, I mean, it's something that I've always wanted to do is to go to that event. And so, for my 2 buddies, one's in Phoenix, one's in Tampa, and I'm in Seattle. So we don't get to see each other very often, but we do communicate regularly. And so we try every couple of years to meet someplace and do something together. We've been friends for almost 38 years, I think. So it's been, we understand each other. We get each other. And if someone says, hey, let's do this, they know it's not flippant and that it's, it's something to do. One of them has, is newly married and one of them has 4 children. So, we're all over the place as far as our life situations. And, but yeah, and it's just, having that on the list for a while. So we've been talking about it for a little bit. It's not something that's like, oh, it's 11:55 p.m. on New Year's Eve, and let's do this. We've been talking about it for a while, so we've been, unfortunately, the last couple of years they didn't have the event, so it was,
Dang.
not something we could do,
Yeah.
because of what I call lockdowns, and so so that's lifted. Let's go, and so we've saved our money. One person has airline miles, and one person has hotels, points, and we just
And
save
you
up.
kind of just group them together. And
Yeah, we just
Get
group
out.
them together, and I think somebody's buying the 3 tickets to compensate for their not having those other 2 things. So we just share the costs, and which helps a lot. But it's been a long time on the list, right? It's been a long
Yeah.
time in conversation, so we've been able to save whatever we need to make that happen.
So I want to ask this. So now that you've crossed that off and stuff, how do you kind of generate new, I don't want to say ideas, but new kind of like things to put on your bucket list? Like, how do you kind of generate? Because I feel like eventually, right, you're going to get to this point where like, oh man, what should I do type of thing. What would you say for those people?
Yeah, I think it's about always being curious, right? And being forward thinking. So I'll give you an example. I was last year. I took the 3-month trip to Europe, and
Awesome.
when I decided that I was going for 3 months, that was the first choice, right? It's like, okay, I'm going to go travel for 3 months. I actually went to Costa Rica, Spain, Italy, Israel, and the United Kingdom. And so I said, okay, I'm going to take this trip. For me, since community is my, my thing, for my intention, for my bucket list, I'm like, okay, who can I see? Where can I go? Who can I see? And so when I picked places where I was staying, I picked them based on how easy it was to go see other people
Dang.
that I knew from other experiences. So again, that intention of community really dictated, right? I only knew one person in Rome, so I only spent a day in Rome, right? I spent almost 4 weeks in Trieste, Italy, where I was able to see 4 or 5 people because they lived nearby. I was able to hop on a train to Milan for a 3-hour ride to go for the weekend to visit 3 or 4 people, right? So those relationships kind of dictated my agenda, right? And so that's what, again, it goes back to, that's how, by setting that intention, it kind of helps you formulate what it is, right? For me, it's to the point where it's like, how does setting that intention keep me from doing things that I probably shouldn't do? Right? It's like when I look at it, I'm like, oh, and I'll give you an example. Well, this maybe not be the best example, but I've recently taken Burning Man off my bucket list. Right? So many people at Burning Man want to go to Burning Man's great. Nothing wrong with Burning Man. No hate for Burning Man, because I don't want burners to come at me, but because they will. But it's just I've recently was something some friends of mine said we would kind of like to do together. They've kind of backed out. They said they don't want to do it anymore. I've kind of talked to some people, and I've decided at 53 I don't want to be out in the desert with dust in every crack in my body for 8 days. That's just something I don't want to do, right? So it's so when you have that intention, like could I build community when I was there? Yes, I could do that. But the whole point of having it on the list in the beginning was that I was going to go with these friends who now no longer say they want to go. So it's like, all right, man, I'll take that off the list. It's no problem. And I think it's a matter of, to answer your question, it's a matter of just how do you look at the things that are around you and incorporate things you love into it. So like one of the issues that I had when I went to Europe for those 3 months was everybody back home telling me what I needed to go do and go see. Like my mom, I love her, but she was like, oh, you need to go to the National Museum, in London. You need to go to the National Museum. And I'm in my head, I'm like, why do I want to go walk around a building with a bunch of stolen, stuff that white people stole from black people? It's like that doesn't appeal to me. But what does appeal to me and what I am very interested in is I'm a huge Ted Lasso fan. I think Ted Lasso is the best show ever. And so I spent one day in London just visiting Ted Lasso sites where they shoot the show.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. I went to the practice field. I went to the pub. I went to Ted's street where he lives. I went to the
What
park.
was the coolest place, would you say? Like, out of all?
Gosh. The pub was really interesting because they don't film in the pub. They recreate the pub on a film set, but majority of it looks just like it. But it was super interesting to me because there was, besides on the sandwich board, chalkboard outside where it said "Believe," it had a drawing of the Believe sign that Ted has up above his office. There was nothing about Ted Lasso in there. There weren't pictures of the cast on the wall with signatures. There weren't dishes on the menu that were Ted Lasso themed. It was like they just did their thing. Like they recognized that they were, that they had all this attention because of the show, but they didn't change who they were. Right. Whereas like that would be like the complete opposite in America. Like in America, like they would take every advantage, of notoriety as possible. And the people in there were just like people from the show. They were just super nice, and and the food was good. And so that really caught me as an American. That kind of caught me off guard. I'm like, why are you not taking advantage? Oh wait, that's not taking advantage. That's that's stealing. So it was just like that was really interesting to me. The funniest story was getting to the practice field where they shoot a lot of the practice shots. It was very difficult for me because I didn't have a car. I was trying to use public transportation. I wound up walking like 45 minutes to get there after I had taken like a 20-minute train ride. But as I walked up, there's a guard, of course, in the guard shack of this facility. And I was like, hey, I just want to, step near the pitch and take a couple pictures. He's like, yeah, sure. Just, go around that corner and there's an office. You can go into the office and let them know that you're here. I'm like, well, that's a lot more awkward than this conversation was, but I'll do it. I'll do it. And so as I'm walking towards the office, this gentleman comes out of the office with another person, and he's like full double-breasted suit, English.
Oh, jeez.
And he was getting into a Rolls Royce. This obviously the owner of the club. The club that actually plays there. There's a club that actually plays at that facility team. And I said, hi. I said, is there any way I can just like go around and take a picture? I won't walk on the pitch, but I'll just, just take a picture of the facility. And he looked up at me. He goes, Ted Lasso? And I said, yeah. And he goes, yeah, go ahead. Seems like that definitely happens a lot to them. And, I just went around, and there's the entranceway that they always use in the parking lot where they leave every night and that kind of stuff. And I got to take pictures there. And then I went out a little ways around the pitch so you could see the stands where the offices are and everything. And I took some selfies, and my face just hurt, Josh. My face just hurt.
Just from smiling.
Yes. That was towards the end of my trip, and I had done a lot of really cool stuff, but that day I was so happy, And to get back to our conversation, it's like that's what drives my bucket list, right? It's what is it going to bring you joy, right? You don't have to do everything everybody else does. You were talking earlier about New Year's resolutions. Everyone's just doing everything for everybody else. Well, my year of doing this, I've seen a lot of Instagram posts of people, taking balloon rides over Cappadocia, Turkey, right? Like that's like
exactly.
Like that's it's like that's not on my list, right? I mean, if my partner wants to do it, I'll do it with her. That sounds like it would be fun, but I'm not going to put it on my bucket list, right? I'm not going to make it. And because for me, putting things on a bucket list, it's like this is an objective for my life. Right, that I'm putting on here. I'm going to cross this thing. I'm going to do this thing. It's an objective. I'm going to get it done. It's not even just a goal. It's like this is a mission, right?
Yeah, exactly.
and so for me, putting things on the list, it does kind of have to be special. I know people that have lists of 100 items, and I get asked that question all the time. It's like, how many items do you have on your bucket list? And I'm like, I don't know. This is my list. It doesn't matter how many I have. And I think a big thing is that one of the things that I discovered over the past year is that it's really important to look at your bucket list as a living document.
Yes.
Right. And so often in our society, if I send you an email, people are like freak out. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is what we're doing. I'm like, it clearly stated that this was a rough draft. It clearly said this is an idea. This doesn't mean that, because we've written it down someplace that it's set in stone. Right.
Exactly.
And so being a living document, you can add things to your list. You can complete things on your list and cross them off, or you can just delete things off your list. You should be able to have the freedom. And again, it's that thing about the New Year's resolution where if I don't do this, there's shame. It's like for me, if I don't do something on my list, it's just because it's not the right time or I don't want to do it anymore. And that's okay. It doesn't bring me shame for not doing that. And so I want people to have that freedom, right? This should bring you joy and freedom, the feeling of freedom. So let's make sure we do that.
I think you're right. I think oftentimes, again, kind of reinforce your point. You said how we're always doing things for other people. I think that's so true. I think, right, we're like, oh, I got to do this and this and this and this and this. And I actually had to laugh a little bit at when you said that when you send out an email, it's just a rough draft, and you literally say it's rough draft, and people start freaking out like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? I'm like, that's so true though. Like, when is it ever, like, to say it's a final draft, like, hate to break to you, there's always improvements you can make to it.
Exactly.
And I like how you say it's a living document, right? A living document can be amended, it can be deleted, all the things that you said, and it makes it more real to you, and it also makes it more real for the time that you're currently in, right?
Exactly.
So maybe, like, let's say you had a thing on your bucket list to, I don't know, you wanted to climb Mount Everest, right? But then all of a sudden you get in a horrible car accident, something like that. I mean, yeah, there's people that probably have done it, right? And more power to them. But for some people, right, it's more work for them, right? It stresses them financially. There's all those things that just kind of pile on top of that. But then having that ability to say, hey, you know what? This is who I am now. Let's look at the document. What can we change? What can we amend? What type of things do we want now that, my circumstances changed?
And that analogy that you gave, what might be a little bit harder than what it would have been before this, right? And because I think your bucket list items need to be achievable, right?
Yeah.
So if you're quadriplegic, that going up to Mount Everest might be a little tough because they're going to have to carry you the whole way. And so to find people that are physically strong enough and have the time and equipment, that might be a little bit difficult. But most things you need to make them achievable. And because the whole point of having a list is that you get to cross things off of it. You can say, exactly. I'm done. If you want a dream board or a vision board or something like that to keep you motivated, then sure, you can cut out pictures of your bucket list items and put it on there to keep you motivated. But your list needs to be something that you're going to say, I'm going to cross this item off. I'm going to do this to completion. And so to do that, they need to be achievable. And that's super important.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know. Maybe my wanting a jet, that's a little far-fetched, but I'm pretty ambitious, so we'll...
But you have lots of time, Josh. I'm rooting for you, man. You have lots of time. I would never tell you not to do that because I'm looking forward to our friendship where I can use that jet with you.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So you've got plenty of time, my friend. Don't rush it. It's that is for you at your age with that goal. It's achievable.
Thank you. It's going to be difficult, I will admit. So that kind of brings up a question. When it gets difficult, right, maybe I guess there's a balance, right? Like you want to set it that it's achievable, right? And some things, right, are just fun, right? That's the point, right? You want to have joy.
Yes.
But also maybe you have that one thing on your bucket list that's just maybe a little bit far-fetched. How do you kind of overcome those challenges that come with it, I guess, is my question.
A stretch goal is different than not being achievable, right? So let me give you an example. I don't think we talked about this last time I was on your show. If I am, stop me and we'll edit it out. But
okay.
But something I loved as a child, as an adult, is Saturday Night Live. I love Saturday Night Live. I've always loved it. I've never thought that there's been a bad year. Some people, this year's good. And I'm like, it's what it is. Just laugh,
Exactly.
So I like all the cast members. I like all the years. It doesn't matter to me. I've been watching it for all 48 years or whatever it is. So sometimes I dream about standing on that stage in front of those cameras live on Saturday Night Live on Saturday night and saying live from New York at Saturday Night Live. Like that's a dream. I've literally had that dream, right? Like literally dreamt that. I've daydreamed it. I've done all that. Now, for our conversation, the reality is that there are only 325 people in the history of that show that have ever said those words on live TV.
That's not a lot.
No, to give you how that's not a lot. In the same time period, there's been twice as many NFL starting quarterbacks in that same amount of time. Twice as many, over like 750 NFL starting quarterbacks in those same 48 years. So for me to be able to do that, to get on that show, say those words live, I would have to become The Rock. I would have to, I would have to be, Ed Sheeran or whoever the most
Something
popular,
like that.
It would take a great deal of work just for me to be in a position to be asked to be able to say those words, right? And if you cut out all that work, right, and say, well, you could be a cast member, it's like, I'm 52. The likelihood of Lorne Michaels taking me on as a cast member and having needed skills to be a cast member at the age of 52, probably not going to happen, right? I would love it, but I just know that it's not going to happen. So it's not on my bucket list, right? It's a dream and it's a fantasy and it's fun to think about, just like it's fun thinking about the lottery, it's great. Something that is on my bucket list is I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I love Star Wars. Saw it in the theater in 77.
Oh, yeah. I think we did.
Okay. Yeah. Good.
You wanted to be an extra. I know you mentioned the Star Wars extra. I don't think you mentioned the Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
I didn't know that part. But.
Yeah. So that's the opposite side of the coin, right? Is that I would love to be an extra in a Star Wars movie. And that, even though it's difficult, if I really put my mind to it, I know people that work in LA. I know people that work in the business. I understand how the business works. I understand what casting calls are. I don't want a speaking part. Like I said last time, put a stormtrooper helmet on me. I'll miss every target. It's fine. I can do that. I just, because it's a community thing. Like I just want to say I was a part of that community that made that part of that story, right? A small part of that story. That's the only reason I want to do it. But I could make that happen if I had the time, the energy. I could probably make that happen. And so that's on my list.
100% you can make that happen, especially with Star Wars always pumping out new stuff.
It wasn't always like that.
Oh, I bet it was a lot.
Your generation doesn't appreciate the fact that we had to wait years and years and years for new stories.
Oh yeah, we got what? We got like 6 this year.
Yeah.
Like just this year, and they were series too.
Yeah. They're going to keep on rolling. So Disney's got to make back that $4 billion that they gave George Lucas.
They realized, oh shoot, this didn't pan out how we wanted.
Oh no, they've been doing pretty well. I think they've been doing.
Yeah,
pretty well.
I like the last series they did. It was Andor. I thought that was really well done.
Can't wait for the second season of that. It's really good. Yep. Yeah.
That was good.
Just I'll walk by on screen. I don't care. I'll just be in the crowd.
Be one of the guys shooting and just running around.
You can blow me up if you want to. I don't care. I'll be a prisoner in the prison. That's fine with me. I don't care.
So how would you make that happen then?
Well, I mean, the Star Wars stuff, you have to realize that a lot of it's done in London. A lot, I
didn't know that.
Yeah, a lot of the filming's done in London, casting's done in London. More of the Mandalorian stuff is done here in the States because of the volumes. They use these volumes things that they film in with. It's like a big, huge LED screen all around it, and so there's not a lot of casting in the shows, but I would start. I have some friends in LA that are quasi in the business, and I would call them up and say, "Hey, do you know anybody that works on these shows?" And I would just start networking and just keep on going. Who do you know? Who do you know? Who do you know? Until I figured out when and where the casting calls were and show up.
There you go. I'm excited to see you as an extra on one of these. Let me know when that happens, and I'll be looking for you.
No
That's
doubt.
awesome. Well, it looks like our time's about to wrap up, but this was good. Thank you for coming on, Roger. But I'm gonna ask the intelligent question of the day.
Sure.
Forgive me if it's terrible. What piece of advice would you want the listeners to take away from you? What's the one thing that you want them to kind of take away and apply to their lives?
That it's their list. Yeah, I mean, it's been a part of this conversation a little bit. It's definitely a big part of my book is that it's your bucket list. Don't let anybody tell you what you should have on it. Don't look necessarily for ideas from other people or from the gram or Facebook or wherever you use social media. Find your reason why you're doing it, and then look at the world and say, okay, how does this fit my reason? How does this fit my why? And it'll bring you so much more joy if you intentionally make it your list.
There you go. That's the intelligent answer of the day, everyone. That was awesome. You mentioned your book. I also need this information as well, but where can people find it? And I know you blasted your social medias and all that in the last episode, but what's the best way people can chat with you, reach out to you, all that fun stuff?
The best thing that's new since the last time we talked is a website for me. It's crossingitoffpodcast.com. And you can find all information about me. You can find information about my podcast, how you can become a guest on the podcast. I'm always looking for people to share their bucket list stories on the show. And as well as you can find information about my book, how to get it on Amazon. Or if you use a PDF reader, ebook reader, you can actually purchase it straight from the website for your listeners if they want to grab a copy. It's usually $7.99, but if they use the promo code FRIEND in checkout, then they can get it for $5.99. So I hope so people do that. And so you can find out all information about me and the bucket list resources I provide at that website.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on, Roger. I was excited when you reached out to me. I was like, yes, we're doing it. Put it on the docket. So thank you for coming on today.
Oh, no. Thank you for having me, Josh. I love what you're doing and that you're putting yourself out there. And just remember, it takes time. It always takes time. So you will get the jet and I will go wherever you want to go with you. I don't even care. So just riding in.
Thank you.
Awesome stuff. Thanks.
Well, I try my best. All right, everyone, that is Roger. As you can tell, he's a very intelligent person, has great things to say. I challenge you guys. He dropped the information there. If anything sparked your interest today, to reach out to him. His book is also available. He mentioned where you can find it there as well. Stay tuned till next week. We have a great guest lined up for you guys. See you guys next week, and let's get after it. Hey everyone, if you liked this episode and would like to hear more, be sure to hit that subscribe or follow button. We release a new episode every Wednesday for you guys to listen to. Thank you guys so much for the support that you give. We could not have done this without you guys. If you would like to be a potential guest on the show, check out intelligentconvos.com and fill out the form there. Thank you guys again, and let's get after it.